Oh my gosh. Today, I want to show you how to take one of these basic slow razors and fully upgrade it. So what we have here is just one of my old MX650s. This is one of my very first razors. I've kept it bone stock for neighborhood kids and anyone who just wants to ride. These things max out at about 15 miles an hour. It's got terrible suspension. At the end of the day, it's a Walmart bike made for kids. I've built and modified about 4 of these razors now, and that has allowed me to accumulate a bunch of parts. Not even 2 years ago, I was in your position. I wanted to build a razor. I was absolutely clueless on any of this electric stuff. I've just recently built a new Razor Pro Spec. So what we're gonna do is take all the guts from the Razor Pro Spec and we're gonna stick them into this MX650. And I wanna talk to you guys about just the basics on what to look for and what you're gonna need when upgrading your bike. So say you have one of these old razors and you just wanna make it fast, sweet. No suspension upgrades or anything. But I will say, as soon as you put a faster motor and everything in these bikes, you're gonna realize really quick how much worse the suspension actually is on these bikes. So if you're gonna do it, I highly recommend doing your suspension too. So if you're ready to tear your razor apart and give it the full modifications, this is what you're gonna need. You're gonna need an upgraded motor, an upgraded controller to power that motor, which is kind of the brains of the bike. You're gonna need a stronger battery to supply the whole system, need an ignition to power everything on, a new rear shock, you're gonna need new forks. The motor has a bigger sprocket, so we're gonna need a new rear sprocket and a beefier chain. For handlebars, I'm not gonna put any higher handlebars on this bike because I have super low ones for my daughter now, and my idea is to build this bike and get it as low as possible. So as she grows, hopefully she can fit on this bike a little sooner than we planned. I did almost forget, these things come with very low quality cable brakes. I highly recommend go ahead and putting on nice hydraulic brakes onto it. Now, I wanna keep this video super basic, but buying those parts, there's a lot of options out there. I personally use Electro and Company. They were just the first company I came across. When I got into this world, I learned their products and I simply just stuck with them. And pretty much every one of their products are direct bolt-on to Razor products. But I'll talk more about that as we get into this. First, let's rip this bike fully apart. And that's all we're left with. So pretty much all we keep on the stock Razor is the chassis, all the plastics. I actually like keeping it kind of sleeper. I like putting the stock plastics back over the battery and just kind of protecting it. These wheels I have, they're from an SX500. They're just a little smaller and more motocross style. I wasn't really worrying about color, so we threw the green hub ones on there. We got rid of the battery, the controller, the motor, the shock, the front fork, and the brakes and the chain. The first thing we need to do is get rid of this middle bracket. The MX650 is actually the only frame you actually have to worry about this. The SX500 has all that taken out, so there's plenty of room for the battery. But as you can see, this bigger 48 volt battery is not gonna fit in there without taking that out. These are the 3 batteries that are in the bike. This is the one we're putting in it. Now I got plenty of room. These little side edges that come stock on the razors, you just kind of want to open those up a bit. So now that should fit in there. So here we have an Electro and Co 76 volt battery, and you can see it sits a little lower than that one. Once we're done, we'll fully strap this thing down. As we put everything together, we need to make sure all our routing is right. The battery is going to hook to the controller, and we need to know how far away everything can be. So we want to have that stuff kind of on standby. Controller, we're gonna have to figure out somewhere I want to put it. So if you were to get like the Electro and Co setup, the controller that comes with their setup actually goes right here under this top tube. There's enough room behind the battery. Might be able to do like sticky Velcro and stick it right there. This setup is not designed for this bike, so if you were to buy a setup, everything is actually made directly for the setup you're doing. So keep that in mind when I'm trying to piece things together on this build. But I really do like the look of that, as it will sit right behind the battery, and then I can put the casing back on, and that casing will enclose everything. And I went ahead and just threw the shock in there just to kind of get everything out of the way and make sure I had clearance. I don't want to do too high or too low and have a wire that's just a little too tight. So I also realized I had a rock shock, like a mountain bike air shock, and it sits a little lower than the Electro and Co one that I was gonna put in. And like I said, I want this bike to sit as low as possible for my daughter. So I threw this in there, and plus it's just a much cooler shock. I had no other use for it. It's like perfect for this bike. This is a 190 by 51. So we know where our controller's going. Our shock is in. That's actually everything as far as inside the bike. Everything else is gonna be wires coming into it. I'm gonna get the fork put on and get the wheels on. That way we can start bolting everything else up and run all the cables. The rear wheel, these stock Razor wheels, there's just a spacer put directly behind a bicycle freewheel. So the spacer stays behind the freewheel. You don't have to remove the freewheel. But we're taking our upgraded sprocket that fits the new chain going on, and that goes on the outside of the freewheel, and we just 4 bolts, bolt it all together. We're gonna throw our throttle on, ignition. I'm gonna have to cut the ignition into the plastic somewhere. I haven't even put the motor on yet. Getting ahead of myself. The motor. Oh no. Oh no. This motor I have only has one mounting side. So, I just did all this. The Spec motor has 3 mounting points and nothing on this side. And if you look right here, there's 2 mounting points there, which these will match, but that puts my sprocket on the wrong side. This video just changed a little bit. Still the same idea, but you can't just take a Spec set of guts and throw it in a Razor. I gotta do some thinking. I'll get back to you. Okay, we're back. The problem was actually a lot easier to solve. So what I ended up doing was, while I had it out, I re-tapped these 3 holes in the motor. For some reason, these 3 holes were stripped out, which I don't remember doing it. Maybe as a fact, I don't know. Anyways, we re-tapped them, they're good. So I used the stock engine bolt from the front, and then all I did was make a little S-bend on some flat bar, drilled it, and I actually just bolted it directly to the chain tensioner, and then I lined it up, which gave me a perfect second anchor point for the motor. With the power of this motor, I don't really think that's gonna be an issue anyways. I mean, the Spec is bolted all 3, and it hangs off the other side, so I think we're good. We have power. Which brings me to my next problem. That noise you hear, that little click, I think that's a bearing. I checked the brakes and nothing's actually rubbing. Anyways, the bike works, and that was the goal. I can address the back wheel later. We got everything up top back on. I'm gonna clean up this wiring, throw the plastics on, and we'll start wrapping things up and see how it performs off the bench. I know a lot of guys don't use the plastics. I personally just like reusing the plastics. One, I feel like it just kind of encases everything out of just away from the elements. I really had to chop up the case to make it fit around this bigger 48-volt battery, but it all does fit. The Razor Spec guts fits inside an MX650. Yeah, here she is. Turn her around. Oh, well. So I drilled holes and I put the new charging port in. I put it right behind these other ones. I thought it'd be cleaner if I just cover these up and there's a new one instead of putting new holes. Now the key, I drilled a hole over here and put a hole in the case, but I'm just now realizing when I put the plastics on it covered it. Luckily this is a breakaway key, and you know, I'm thinking I could just, maybe it'll be like a blessing in disguise, you know? Maybe if I drop it, it's just a little bit of protection away from the key and it's kind of hidden, but not ideal, but I actually don't mind it because it just stays out of the way. So, but I'm getting anxious and I can't wait anymore. So let's see how she actually feels. Here she is. Just kind of, the ass end is a bit kicked up, huh? The goal is, like I was saying in the beginning, is for my daughter to fit on this, right? So I have the forks fully maxed out. I'm hoping I could put some 7/8 risers, maybe like pullback style, which would allow me to actually get these forks to come up higher through the trees and just come in front of the bars. That way I'll drop the front end lower. But say I want to drop the back end now, take some air out of the shock. Oh, we on bags now. How's that look right there? There we go, that looks a little more proper. The front end looks a little raked, but I just rolled my ankle. I stepped on the kickstand and rolled my ankle. Ah! Oh. Oh, okay. That hurt. Oh my gosh. No way. Well, no way my daughter's getting on that. Safe to say it's faster. Okay, our build was a success. Well, a few modifications. Everything did switch over nice, but now we have a Razor MX650 with the Pro Spec guts. I'm assuming going from a 12-inch rear wheel, which is on the Pro Spec, down to a 10-inch rear wheel. This is a 72-tooth sprocket in the rear. I haven't even counted what comes on the Pro Spec, but it's pretty obvious this bike has a lot more torque than what the Pro Spec comes with stock. Between an easier gearing for the motor, a super short back end, obviously the thing stood up on me immediately. So I'm gonna take it out in the sunlight tomorrow and give it a test around and see if I'm even comfortable putting my daughter on it, because as of right now, no little kids are touching this bike. Thanks for tuning in on this one. I was literally experimenting as we went on that. I had these parts and I thought it'd be cool to make a video, and now we have another bike to add to the collection like I needed another one. So if you're not subscribed already, I have a lot more emoto content to come. Please give me some questions on this one, because your questions are gonna help me fuel my future videos, and maybe you can actually teach me something about building these that maybe I missed, because I wanted this to come across very, very basic on how to build up a modified Razor. Until next time, thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. You go for a rip with me? Test laps.
You go first.
I was not expecting this bike to have that much of an upgrade. All right, see you on the next one. Now go.